And fellow students, thank you for being here today. My name is Jelena, I'm an officer of Raffles Business Society, and I'm really honored to be your host today. First, I would like to welcome you all to our 6th Business In-House Seminar, a joint collaboration program of Raffles International College Cambodia, Raffles Business Society, and Raffles Center of Professional Development. I am very excited to share with you in today's seminar that we have invited 2 special guests here to share their expertise, knowledge, and experience. The first session will focus on cultural observations from an international marketer, and the second one will be focused on engaging people at work. So firstly, I would like to invite up here the College Director of Raffles International College, Cambodia, to deliver the opening remarks. Please welcome Mr. Tan.
Good morning, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, how is the morning? Good? Yes. Hope it's better than mine. I have a very bad flu, so pardon me if I sneeze later during my speech. It's going to be a short one. Once again, I welcome all of you to Raffles International College for this seminar. Okay, I'm very proud to say that my Raffles Business Society has done a very good job in organizing a lot of seminars, which is very beneficial to the public. Okay, who has come to our seminar before? Only 1, 2, 3, 4. So far, do you see the trend of the seminar? Do you see the trend? It is always business or it is always something else? Sorry? Different kind of thing, right? Okay, we are back to our business seminar now. We've done a series of fashion and marketing seminar as well. Okay, so just to announce to all of you, next week will be our open house, whereby you will get to know in depth into what our programs can offer, as well as what can you do when you finish the program, industrial knowledge. Okay? So hope to see all of you again next week for our open house, which will be a different thing. It will not be a seminar. It will be a detailed introduction to the courses and the program. Okay? So once again, this is organized by our Raffles Business Society. The Raffles Business Society is formed under the Center for Professional Development, and this center is actually more geared towards bringing our student industrial attachment and placement after their studies. So it's like our own career center. So we will organize a lot of series of seminars to actually even to the public. Okay, and we never charge. Okay, and if you have come before, it will always be a very professional seminar. Okay, all of you will get a certificate of attendance later. Okay, so I do hope that if you have Facebook, can you please check in for me? Okay. This is the first time I make such a request, right? You never hear me, right? Okay. Because I feel that it is time to let some of your friends know as well, share the information. Okay. Because I think this is a good experience. And today, once again, I'd like to thank 2 of our speakers, okay, for taking their precious time off to share with us their experience and knowledge. So I'm very sure that after today, most of you or all of you will go back with something useful in your life or your career to apply on. Okay, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Tan. And now to introduce our first speaker, I would like to call on the president of Raffles Business Society, Mr. Niek.
All right, good morning, everyone. Well, I'm very honored to introduce our first speaker for the seminar today, Mr.Niek Van Veen. Mr. Niek, he is the marketing director of Cellcard, and he's lived most of his professional life abroad, working for companies such as Singtel, Forrester, and Vodafone. His expertise lies mainly in digital media and connecting dots between patterns of consumer activity and as well as developing market propositions. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our speaker today, Mr. Niek Van Veen.
I put this one down. Can you all hear me without it as well?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So thank you very much all. Thank you, German and Raffles Business Society, for organizing the event, and thank you for inviting me. Also, thank you all for joining me, joining us today. I hope you will take something out of it. When I got asked to speak, and I asked, like, what should I talk about? They said, why don't you just talk about your experience? You have been in international business for 10 years. You must have plenty to talk about. So I thought it was a great idea because it means less to prepare, because I can take from my own experiences. But also I think in today's globalized world, many of you will have to deal with, either from a marketing point of view, will either work abroad or have to do business with people from different countries. And so having cultural awareness and knowing how to do business with people from different cultural backgrounds is very useful. Just a show of hands, how many of you have already experienced living abroad or working abroad? Good, good. And how many of you are planning, as part of maybe an internship or for part of their professional career, to go abroad at some point? Okay, good. So I see quite a few hands. I like participation, and it's interesting. Like as I went in the introduction, I've been working for more than 10 years in different parts of the world. I've worked in Berlin, London, Singapore for a long time, and I've always worked in multinational organizations or cross cultures for people from different parts of the world. I was just talking to Jelena about one example. I always remembered when my first job was as a consultant, and as a consultant I used to travel quite a bit to different European countries to do seminars and workshops with business leaders. And it was such a distinct difference on where you would be in Europe, even in Europe, right? So if I would be in Italy, my presentation would have like a lot of imageries, like nice visuals, video, and they're really how you convince an Italian about that your idea is the best idea is by telling a good story. If you would go to Germany, completely opposite. In Germany, I would need to show tables, numbers, facts, and it would almost be an interrogation. People question every single number that I would show and say, is that number really true, or are you just bullshitting me? So different approach in different countries. Today I have a lot more videos and pictures, so I hope that you're more like Italians rather than Germans to make my presentation stick. So to start off with a little bit of audience interaction. So this one, I was doing some reading up about to get my academic information right. I found this image, and I wanted to raise a hand. So here we have this flower in a red box, and to show how people's mind is. There's no right or wrong answer in these things. But if you look into this flower, can you all see it in the back as well, by the way? Might be a bit small. Anyway, this flower in the red box, do you believe that it belongs to category A? Or do you believe that it belongs to category B? No right or wrong, just a show of hands. See if the theory also works in practice. So who thinks that the flower in the box belongs to group A? Show of hands. Come on, don't be shy. Who thinks that it belongs to group A, this flower? Okay. Yeah, bloody over. Who thinks that it belongs to group B? Interesting.
The rest don't like flowers.
The rest don't like flowers. Okay. The interesting thing about this picture is apparently in Asian, Eastern countries, more people think that this flower belongs to group A. In Western European cultures, and I saw Jelena also raising her hands, they think this flower belongs to group B. The reason why is Asians think more impressionistic, holistically. So because most of the flowers have the same kind of petals, have the same leaves, they think that, and the same kind of stem, that this flower used to belong to group A. Where Europeans have the tendency, or Westerners have the tendency to break down in different components, and they say the stem is all the same here, hence this flower needs to belong to group B. Just an example of different mindsets. Very quick other ones. Example, you have a monkey, a banana, and the panda. Which one belongs together? Does the monkey and the panda belong together, or the monkey and the banana? Again, no right or wrong. It's not a trick question. Who thinks that the monkey and the banana belong together? Raise some hands if you think that the monkey and the banana belongs together.
The mainstream would be monkey.
And who thinks that the monkey and the panda belongs together? Again, so this is like sample size of one, but the European in the room thinks that the panda and the monkey belongs together. Again, apparently, and the test so far shows that the theory is right, Europeans think in categories. So monkey, panda, both mammals, so they belong together. Asians think more about relationships, so how relationships work. Monkey likes banana, hence monkey and banana belong together. This is kind of funny example, but this is actually quite recent. So up to a long time, people used to think, or academics used to think, that basically people across the world think in the same way. So if you are a hunter in Brazil, or a business person in New York, or a farmer here in Asia, they would also pretty much think, feel, see the world in the same way. But actually nowadays we know that from different parts or different cultural backgrounds, people think in different ways. So how does that matter? Because as a marketeer or as a business person, if you want to sell products, and if you want to work in different environments, you need to understand that people actually have different cognitive processes. So people think and see the world in a different way, right? It's not always the same. Just a quick definition as how I see culture. So if you want, like my talk for today is about culture, so let's put a definition out there. And to me, culture is all about what is familiar and what is accepted. Familiar are the things about visuals, right? Like, so familiar is when you land in Phnom Penh from the airport and you drive into town, all the symbols that you see, the colors, the street signs, the logos, everything that you absorb is what is familiar. Accepted is more the things that are invisible. So these are the things that are implicitly implied when you talk to people. So it's how you interact with people, how you, if you can be direct and to the point, or if you need to be a little bit, get to know people a little bit better. It was another thing that we just talked about. We actually talked a lot about culture just now. We talked about how you do business. So in Northern Europe, when you meet someone and you want to do business, you say hello, you do your greetings, you ask how they are, and then within 1 minute, you get to the point, and you follow the business agenda. When it's in other cultures, and specifically also here in Asia, when you want to do business, you first maybe go out for some drinks. So if I go to China, I get drunk with the person first before I can actually talk business. So I need to go out on a night, get completely drunk, and then the next day we can talk business. Different cultures, different behaviors. And the only way to work across that, so when you want to work in cross-culture, and if you want to work in different environments, you need to be curious. So you need to understand, and you need to have like deep interest in what makes other people tick. And if you want to do business across cultures, or if you want to do marketing, or if you want to work abroad, if you want to deal with anyone in another culture, the only way to do that effectively is try to understand them. Because as I showed earlier, people from other cultures, they might see the world in a different way. It doesn't mean that they're right, it doesn't mean that they're wrong, it doesn't mean that they're stupid. It just means that they have a different worldview. So in the same as if you want to do marketing to people, like the only way to effectively communicate to people is to communicate for impact, so you need to understand what makes them tick. If you don't understand people, it doesn't make a difference. So when I came to Cambodia, like before I arrived, my boss, he sent like decks and decks of all kind of market research. So I got all the statistics about how many people use a mobile phone, what kind of mobile phone they use, how many minutes do they call, where did they call from, the SEC status, jobs, you name it, I got statistics. But I find as a marketer, the only way to really get to know a culture and to get to know people is to talk. So the first thing that I did was actually go out into the market. I went to different places, like Battambang, Siem. I also did like a bit of sightseeing tour of Cambodia, so I got to see Angkor Wat, I got to see the coastline, it was very beautiful. But I also went to talk to our dealers, and I talked to consumers, and I talked to the people in Cambodia. So I went to people's houses, and we had conversations, well, not me personally, but with a translator. And we used to talk for maybe 2-3 hours to really understand what makes people tick and how people think. So this was one of the interviews. This is Sophia, and I just want to share you one example of how talking to people, you can have all the statistics in the world, and you can have lots of information, which is really important, but how talking to people will help you to gain insights and really understand and get behind the psyche. So this is Sophia. He was 23 years old. He was SEC, I think, and he worked in a factory here in Phnom Penh, close to the river, and in a Vietnamese neighborhood. And he worked in a factory. He dropped out of school. He did have a smartphone though. So and his smartphone was his main source of entertainment. So he would every night he would either well, he had network coverage, or he would go to the cafe down the road where they had free Wi-Fi. So he would sit outside and would play with his phone and would play on Facebook. So the reason why he had a smartphone, he actually wanted to buy an iPhone. So he came across that iPhone was a big thing, but he could not afford it. So he got a Samsung, and he did not know. He had heard about Facebook, but he actually didn't know what it was. So he went to a shop and said, "I need that Facebook. Can you set it up for me?" So he went to a shop. I believe he actually paid for the service of setting up Facebook. I never heard of anything like that. So that was mind-blowing. You don't read that in statistics reports, right? So he had paid someone to set up the Facebook. And then in the West, Facebook is personal. Like, I don't know how it is for you guys here, but my Facebook is my Facebook. So I share the things that I've been doing, when I go on holiday, when I enjoy food, my maybe opinions. That's what I share on Facebook. But not for him. Like, Facebook was for the whole family. So if he was playing Facebook, and playing Facebook is already interesting, they call it playing Facebook. You're not on Facebook, but you're playing with it. That's not something that you would use in other countries. But when he was playing Facebook and he was done with it, he would give it to his dad. And then his dad would play Facebook and would like things for him. And I said, like, what? He's liking stuff on your behalf? Does it make that awkward that he's like interacting with your friends? But no, Facebook is their window, or was his window to the world. So it was not a thing that he didn't see it as a personal communication tool, but he saw it as a window to the world. That is very interesting. And as a marketeer, that is like, it opens all kind of, well, challenges, like how do you then sell Facebook to someone, and how do you communicate to someone? But also lots of, like it's also a different mindset to keep in mind. One of the last thing that I want to share about this guy, that really was a great insight, is he took out a loan to get his phone. So he had in a factory, somebody loaned him money, factory loan shark. And so we got to talk about how he would be paying back his loan. And he said he had two options, either like in terms of interest, either he paid $1 every day for a couple of months, or he paid $10 each month. And so I chose what he decided to do. And he said, I pay $1 every day because I don't have $10. But I said, and this ended up in a 15-minute discussion, even with our translators who are master's degrees, and totally different mindset. I said, but if he saves for 10 days, he has that $10. So why is he taking the $1 every day and it costs him a lot more money? And the people said, you don't understand, he doesn't have $10. He can't afford $10. But I said, if he saves for 10 days, he has the $10. That doesn't make any sense. This man would say, like, so the whole mindset was like, he can't afford $10. He can only afford $1. And that was like one insight, and I found that's something that I found in Cambodia, like actually across, not even with people that don't have that much money, but across all income categories, is that one is long-term commitments. So basically, people can oversee $1 at a time. $1 at a time is a small investment, so they're quite happy to make $1 commitments. Long-term commitments is something that people have more trouble with. So they don't want to commit to plans, they don't want to commit $10 at a time. And I think like if you don't know where it comes from, in my opinion, if you don't know what happens tomorrow, you're just going to enjoy today. So one thing is that people with less money, typically there's this thing called temptation tax. So people with less income spend more money on indulgent goods. Goods that don't necessarily help you tomorrow, but make you feel happy today. Because you don't know what happens tomorrow anyway, so you don't really invest in whatever happens tomorrow. And then I think when we did later on focus groups, that came across over and over again, that people happy to make short-term commitments, even if it's bad for them long-term. Even if it doesn't make sense long-term and it costs them more. And I think that our green competitors, when I came 6 months ago, they had this perfect insight. Like whoever came up with this campaign of $1 is $15 and nowadays $30 was brilliant. Because it was a small commitment, $1 at a time, so from Smart, like everybody knows the exchange, to spell it out. It's a brilliant proposition. I've never seen it anywhere. It's very uniquely Cambodian. Is $1 is $15. Like in other countries, when we talk about mobile plans, it's typically you talk about megabytes, data, you talk about voice, minutes, SMS. But here it's very simple. $1 is $15 nowadays, $1 is $30. And it's a brilliant proposition because you give me $1, I give you $15 back. Who doesn't want that? It's like a money machine. You make money by giving me money. It's great. And the commitment is small enough. So every day you just give a little bit. And you live with it, and you can play again. So our plans, when I came, our plans were actually not that simple. So our management was quite upset about it and saying like, when our XG plan, let me show it, our XG plan is a bit small. We give $51. So back then, Smart had $15. $1 is $15, and they said we give $51 away. We give 30 minutes, and we give 350 SMS. And we give 1500 MB worth of data, 1.5 GB. It's much better than Smart. Even worse, Smart, to get a little bit technical, we charge for every kilobyte you use and every second that you use. Smart charges per megabyte, so the charging rates are different than for what we had. So they said like you get a much better deal at Cellcard. But that's not what people saw, because we communicated in a very, very difficult way. So we communicated in megabytes, in voice, and we communicated in all these different elements, which people did not, and we asked people to have a commitment, and people did not get that. So people said like, well, I don't see this $51. Whenever I go to your menu, I don't see your $51. So we changed it around. We tried to simplify the message, also go to monetary values, also have less commitment, and also make a very, take out some of the complications. So actually our usage of these packages went up, although we give normally less value. We give less value than we did before, but our usage went up as a result, because it's an easier message to understand. So I just want to say like culture has a very big impact on your products. So if you term saying like going to different, working in a multinational environment, or multicultural environment. So one thing is your, you need to think about how you design the product. Different markets require different product constructs. And you see that a lot of companies do that, right? So if you look at consumer packaged goods companies, Unilever selling sachets here in Cambodia everywhere for consumers who have less to spend. So it's a cheaper way to buy. McDonald's, global brand, but change its menus and its meals depending on the country that they are in. So depending on what is appropriate, either from an economic point of view or a cultural point of view, to change the menu. So in India, for example, they serve vegetarian meals because in India, portion times meat. So one thing that I would recommend, actually something that you need to do as a business person anyway, who's familiar with the pest analysis? Show of hands, who's familiar with this concept? Pest analysis, so political, economical, social, and technological assessment. Yeah, some of you. If you start doing business in any market, This is developed by a Harvard professor in the 60s, Akiyar. If you want to go to a market and do any business, and so that's what I did before I came to Cambodia, I wrote it down for myself. So what is the political situation? So one of the things that you find in Cambodia, maybe other than in other markets, is the legal situation and regulatory environment. So from a regulatory environment, in other countries you can't, for example, charge in pulses. So I can't charge per minute in the Netherlands. But here in Cambodia I can. In the Netherlands I need to charge per second. So that's one thing. So that's what our competitors were doing, and they had better offers. Also another regulatory thing, in other markets I can take my mobile. If I have a nice number, I can take that to my competitor and without any charge, and I can do it within 24 hours in the Netherlands. That's a regulator who has mandated all operators to allow that. Here in Cambodia, no such thing. So as an operator, if I have given somebody a nice number, they're much more likely to stay with me. Right? Economic analysis, as I already mentioned, depending on how much money people have to spend, you need to change your product. Social analysis, so that's the cultural part, right? That is one element of how you enter the market. And when you think about developing products for people, you need to think about what is their social situation, what's the cultural situation. So how people think about money, if they have a long-term view or a short-term view, as for example, is very important. Are people more likely to restrain themselves? Or like the people indulge themselves. So some cultures go a little bit crazy, and having fun is much more accepted than in other countries. Like here in Cambodia, what I found, you tell me if I'm right or wrong, but people prefer restraint. So don't go too crazy. Like when we talk to people, they always say like, youth needs to be serious. Youth needs to be hardworking. Youth should go drinking with friends. When you go in Europe, when you go to the Netherlands, people say, you should be crazy, you should get drunk. If I would organize this event on a Saturday morning at 9 o'clock in the Netherlands, then nobody would show up. Everybody would be still in bed, students would be still in bed, sleeping out their hangover, right? You can't organize an event like this in the Netherlands on a Saturday. There's no way. And then the technological analysis is another thing. So especially digital, is an important driver, an important change, and you have different stages of development in markets. For the telecom industry, for us, it's a marketing channel, but also we see that lots more people nowadays start using Line, Facebook Messenger, and all those tools to make voice calls. So where in the past, on that minute was really, really important for us, and making sure that people call with each other. Nowadays, actually, we don't care that much because voice is almost free. Where we really care about is people using data, so internet. And there are two reasons for that. One is you can only make 24 hours of phone calls maximum. If you're really, really eager, you can make 24 hours of phone calls, and that's it. And we can charge only one rate. But data, data comes in different versions. So if you send a text message, it doesn't consume that much data. But if you watch YouTube in high definition on your phone and you watch a full feature film, it consumes a lot more and we make more money out of it. So data is the future for us. And at the same time, on net and voice minutes become less and less important for us. So we're slowly changing our pricing modules. So to make voice less important and give more voice away and make data more important so we can make more money on data. Another thing that you want to do, I don't know who's familiar with Porter's 5 forces? Raise your hands. Porter? Okay, every business student needs to know Porter. It's very important. Porter is looking at the industry, competitiveness of the industry. So if you go to a market, and that's the other thing that I went to Cambodia, is look at how the structure of the industry works. So any industry works basically in the same way. So you have the industry rivalry. So in Cambodia, for example, in some markets, competition between operators is not that strong. In Singapore, the market was quite stable. In Cambodia, it's bloody aggressive. There were 8 operators before. Nowadays they are reduced to 3 main ones. And competition is extremely fierce with all 3. So they have very aggressive offers. Like prices in Cambodia, I know that people like to complain about how much they are charged by operators, but prices in Cambodia are the lowest in the world. Like you don't get as much data as you can get here in Cambodia. Very aggressive. There are still new entrants coming in. I have no idea why still people would want to invest in Cambodian networks, because rolling out a telecom network is very costly, because it means that in every community you need to put a station, and you need to pay rent, and you need to have electricity, and you need to get cables drawn to it, and then you need to open shops. It's very expensive to run an operator. But there's still new ones coming in. Like I read on Friday that there was a new group, CTEL, who signed an agreement to roll out 4G in Cambodia. For a small market, it's crazy the number of operators. Bargaining power of buyers. So that's you, consumers. And you can bargain. Like most of you have 2 or 3 SIM cards. Like who has more than 1 SIM card? Yeah. Exactly. So you top up whoever has the bonus offer, right? So whoever has the best deal that weekend or that week, that's the one you're going to use. And if you don't give a bonus, you're not going to use us. Luckily, we have a very strong business segment, and on all the segments who are much more loyal to us. But especially you guys, this loyal as you can be, you jump on any single offer that you can find. So threat of substitutes is alternative technologies. And then the bargaining power of suppliers. And the suppliers here as well as our network. So here, if you look at, for example, Singapore, a lot of our sales nowadays happen online. So people, and in the UK as well, like as much as 30% of the sales that we do would be online. So top-ups, people would top up online, go to an application. They don't go to moms and pop shops anymore to buy the scratch cards. People don't buy scratch cards anymore. It all happens online. But the fact that still here in Cambodia people go to the shop to buy a scratch card gives a tremendous power to the moms and pop shops, and whoever they recommend, that's the scratch card you will buy. Right? So if you say like you should buy this scratch card because they have a good deal, then you will go to that offer. So it's a different market situation than what you will find in other markets. Why I give this example is, if you ever get the chance to work abroad, or even if you start your own business here in Cambodia, do this seriously. Like do both the best analysis and really think this through, and do this one as well, do this analysis as well, because it will really help you understand the market networks. And do your research. I was talking to my team members, and sometimes it's helpful when you come from abroad into a market. You have you have a fresh perspective on things, right? Like you don't have your preconceived ideas about how the market should be. Like I was talking to one team member, and he said, like 40% of the population of Cambodia are Vietnamese, and I said, like that's factually not true, but he thought that. Because he heard so much Vietnamese in his neighborhood, and because Vietnamese is a different language, so he noticed it, and that's why he got this perception that so many people were Vietnamese. And it's not Cambodian, because in the Netherlands, people think that 30% of the population is Muslim. It's not correct. Only 5% of the Dutch population is Muslim. But because the news is always talking about Muslims, and there's a lot of people, it's a different language, they're very noticeable in the street because they dress differently from the Dutch, the regular Dutch people. So people think that 30% of the population is Muslim. Not the case. So it's the same here. People might have all kind of preconceived ideas about what is normal and what is not normal, and it might not be true. So always question, always question what you do yourself. Okay. So this is more around the product. So if you go to a developer product, think about the culture. The other thing is communication, right? So as I said earlier, culture is about what is accepted and what is familiar. And if you want to sell a product to anyone, you need to talk their language. You need to talk into such a way that they are not alienated. So the last thing you want to do is, I want to sell something to you guys. I don't want to insult people. So I can't do that. Like a lot of the times, and actually as a coming in from abroad, I need to heavily rely, especially because I don't speak Khmer, and I don't write it, and I don't know what is being written. So I need to rely on my team to make sure that whatever is written and communicated is understood by the local market, and thus also doesn't insult anyone or make sure that it's the mark. So one of the things, I went to Angkor Wat last week. My girlfriend, she lives in the US, and she was here for a week. So she wanted to see Cambodia. So I said, what is Cambodia? This is Cambodia. Right? Cambodia in a nutshell, you have Angkor Wat, you have the monks, you have Orange. If you would need to explain Cambodia to foreigners, this would be pretty much it. So this is culture in a nutshell. It's like the visual elements of a culture. And you can use this. So this is like the visible things that you can use in communication. I will show you one ad that we did 2 years ago. Let's see if I can open up. How do I play it? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Does this work?
Something we can put in the audio.
Is there audio?
There's a speaker there.
That's okay. This is
Can you box it for all of us?
if you can Okay, I hope that it says something about a network expansion, right? Does it say anything about the network, how big the network is? Yes? Okay, so this ad, I actually don't think it's a particularly good ad, because it could have been an ad for the tourist board of Cambodia, because it doesn't have, only at the end it says that Cellcard has a really good network. It's one way you can use those cultural elements to show, communicate to people. What you want to do, I think it's a little bit too obvious, and what I said is that the link with mobile operators is very small, so I think you can be more subtle in using cultural clues, or using cultural, what is accepted culturally, and what is funny within a culture, and communicate your brand message more clearly. So let me show you this one. It was not an ad. Okay, so this is, I would say this is a better ad because it makes use of, still it links to cultural values. So this is not visible culture. So the first one was like visible culture. You see Angkor Wat, you see the beautiful landscape. Not very related to mobile telecoms. The second one is making use of the visible clues, right? So it makes use of the sense of humor. Lady Boys is an Asian thing. In the US, you could not run this ad because it would be too politically incorrect to be to the American taste. But here in Cambodia, people actually like this kind of quirky kind of humor, right? So it's to the local taste. And that's where I say, like, that's where culture comes in. Like, you need to know your audience. If you run a campaign like this, if you come as a Cambodian, you go to the US and you need to devise a marketing campaign, and you would run this campaign, you would get into big trouble on social media. People would say you're very, very insensitive. So never do that if you're going to go to the US and run this campaign. I'm gonna skip this one. It's basically the same kind of thing. So you make use of the type of humor or the elements of what is seen as appropriate in a country to be successful. The last thing I want to talk to you about. So we talked about how culture is impacting your product development. The second thing is culture is impacting your communications, right? So making use of your visible cues and visible elements of culture and invisible elements of culture. Last thing, and actually that's the most important part, and we just spoke about it while we were waiting for a good half an hour about culture in the workplace and how different work styles or how culture is impacting what is appropriate, what is not appropriate. Let me tell you a story. When I first came to Asia to work for Singtel, I joined at the same time as an American colleague of mine. We both are joined at the same time. And when you're in the West, the first thing you need to do when you join a new organization is the first 90 days. There are even books written about the first 90 days. And the first 90 days are the most important time of any new employee. So if you go to America or Europe to do an internship, first 90 days, that's when it happens. You can question everything. You can question the processes, you can question work methodologies, you can question the strategy. That's the time to do it. After 90 days, if you haven't spoken up, you're part of the strategy. That's when it changes. Here in Asia, when I came to Singapore, they said the first 6 months, don't question anything. Don't question the strategy, don't question work methods. Just go with the flow, build up relationships, get to know people, get them to trust you, and then after 6 months, that's when you can start making change, but gradually. So my colleague, I spoke days, she managed not to change the strategy. She actually managed to alienate everyone. She built up relationships, and after that she became effective. She was a really, really strong colleague, but she just pissed off everyone with her working style. So if you're going to work in different countries, be aware that if you have to me, then I think that everything works well, and that they don't have any questions. So that's keep that in mind. If you have an Asian boss, you probably want to spend more time on building relationships. This is also Europe. So we love rules and we love structure, and especially in the Netherlands, we are very much structured. This is in England. They like queuing up in front of actually everywhere. Singaporeans also like to queue a lot. So they like whenever you stand in a shop. I always find in Singapore, I started standing in the shop and all of a sudden people stand behind me. And it's like, why are you standing behind me? It's like, well, we thought that you were the line for the teller. Like, no, I'm not the line, go away, find your own queue. people love to queue up. Some countries, not in Cambodia. People like a little bit more fluidity here. So things are not as planned as much. So when I first came here, I like to plan things. I'm a very organized person, so I like to plan things. I realized things change here a lot, so you need to be a little bit more flexible, and you need to don't plan everything to the letter. Other thing, this is I love this artist. So they created pictograms or designs on how Asians think and how Westerners think. So this is me. If I need to give my opinion. this is what I think, this is what I say. A to B, straight to your face. Not in Asia. In Asia, people, like if saving face is a very important concept, right? So you don't give direct feedback. So you do something like this. So people get sometimes upset when I write them an email or when I give them feedback, because I will say, no, I don't like this, or yes, I do like this. And people don't like that. In Singtel as well, like I worked at group level, so we were working with, we have an Australian branch. So the Singaporeans would work with the Australians. And the meeting style was slightly different. So in Australia, when you sit in a meeting, you make decisions in a meeting, and when you say, when you don't agree with the decision, you say no, I don't agree with you, and we want to change that. In Singapore, when you don't agree with a decision, you don't say anything. You keep quiet. So the Australians would be in that meeting, and they would go like, great, everybody agrees with me because nobody objects. So they would walk out of the meeting and start executing. And the Singaporeans would go like, hey, 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 what are you doing? Why are you executing? I didn't say that I agree. Because they didn't say anything. In Singapore, when you don't say anything, it's a no. When in Australia, when you don't say anything, it's a yes, we all go ahead. Different style. If you don't know that, you're gonna have a lot of trouble. Also the relationship with the boss, hierarchy. When we are in Europe, the boss is not someone who knows it all. The boss is the one, like, well, yeah, he divides the work, but you can question him at all times. I tried to introduce that as well when I first came here. Like, I had my own big office, very formal, and actually I like to sit with my staff. So just informally, when I first started doing it here, people freaked out. Like, why is he sitting with us? He wants to check on us. People became very quiet, did not want to work anymore. So that was not very successful. Like, I learned the hard way that you don't want to do that. You might want to keep a little bit more distance. So this is how Asians see the relationship with staff and the boss. Also, one thing that I've learned is that people, like when I say something, I need to teach people that when I say something, they need to question it. And also when I make a suggestion, it's just a suggestion. It's not that what I noticed, I said like, oh, maybe we should do this. And then the next day they already did it. And I said like, I didn't tell you that you should start executing on this particular marketing campaign. But they said like, you suggested it. I said that we should look into it. I want to hear opinions. So I need to be careful with how you communicate. There's actually a Dutch psychologist who is kind of the foremost expert on culture, and I thought like I'll give you a little bit of academic theory because it's Dutch, so you might quite enjoy it. Geert Hofstede. And so there are 6 dimensions to culture. One is the power distance, so I already talked about it. How people view their boss. Individualism versus collectivism. So in Europe, we think about ourselves. And as we saw the example earlier, in Asia, people think much more about relationships and how that impact others. Masculine versus feminine. So it doesn't mean people driving motorcycles or people dressing up fancy, but it means the competitiveness. So masculine societies are more competitive, place more value on competition. Feminine societies place more value on caring for each other. And we show that on optimistic welfare. Uncertainty avoidance. So that's another important one. So some cultures don't like uncertainty and they will ensure a lot. In other cultures they don't like uncertainty. Like a prime example, when I was in Angkor Wat last week, like us Europeans are much more likely to avoid uncertainty. We don't like uncertainty, so we insure ourselves against every single thing that you can happen. So we have a house insurance, we have a car insurance, we have healthcare insurance, we have even death insurance. Like any insurance that you can imagine, they have. The tuk-tuk drivers in Angkor Wat know that. So they always said to me when we were walking in the streets, they're like, oh no, don't walk on the street so hard, get stroke, very dangerous, don't do that. They know that they really know their target audience. The way to sell something to Europeans is to tell them how dangerous it is and that they definitely should not do it. Then the Europeans will want to avoid that. Other one is long-term versus short-term orientation. As I said, like earlier in Cambodia, people are a little bit more focused on the short term, where in Europe, more long-term. So you can there, in Europe, things like if you do this, then in 2 years you will benefit. Is a message that you can, sell. In Cambodia, if you say like you will benefit in 2 years, nobody will care. You need to, in Cambodia, you need to say, give me $1 and I give you $50 now, or give you $30 now. That's the message that you can sell Cambodia. And then indulgence versus restraint. So some cultures place more value on restraining your spending, restraining yourself. Don't be too outgoing. Where other cultures are much more flamboyant. So you can be a little bit more like party. As I said, like in the Netherlands, we place more value in having fun, going out, getting drunk. In Cambodia, people are a little bit more serious. These are not right or wrongs, right? This is not a judgment. This is just different cultures have different ways, and you need to be aware of it. Because here, I did not have data for Cambodia, unfortunately, but it's like a model online, the Hofstede model. And this is how Vietnam and Thailand, so they're pretty close, I think, to Cambodia, think about these dimensions. So the power distance is high, not very, much more collectivist. So they place much more value about relationships, having lunch together. In Europe, people often have lunch alone. Masculine is kind of halfway. Funny is the difference between in Thailand, they like to avoid uncertainty. The Vietnamese apparently are much more happy with uncertainty. And there seems to be direct inverse correlation because the Vietnamese are much more long-term oriented and the Thai short-term. And then indulgence is pretty low. So now compare it with the Netherlands, where I'm from. We don't like power distance, so we are much more informal. We are very individualistic, so we don't think about relationships with others. So that's something that I needed to learn when I came to Asia, is not thinking about myself, but thinking about the impact I have on other people. We are not very masculine. Like, if you look at me, you wouldn't necessarily say that, but masculine in the sense that we are not very competitive. We are much more about caring for each other and welfare and fairness. We find much more important than getting ahead, getting a leg up against somebody else. And then another different thing is indulgence. So actually, me as a Dutch person, we like to have fun and we like to indulge ourselves a bit more than the average Vietnamese or Thai. So as I said earlier, my girlfriend, she's from the Philippines, so I also put the Philippines on here. And all of a sudden, when I did this, it made so much sense why we always have problems communicating, because one of the things is she's fiercely competitive. She's much more competitive than I am. So she goes to a very good business school as well. Makes sense. The Philippines actually take a lot of cues from the Americas, so they are much more an Anglo-Saxon take on competition. And also, but she's quite short term. She likes to focus on the short term, but she has also more restraint than I am. So when I like to go out, she after 2 drinks, she likes to go home. Oh well. The main thing is, I think, like these kind of models, and there are like lots of different models out there, will help you if you have to deal with people from different cultures, and if you have to deal, they're all like tools that just help you think through how you behave and help you think through how other people might see you, and none of that is wrong or bad or not correct in any way. But what it does is give you awareness and will help you in your communication, will help you in your business, will help you in the marketing, will help you in devising your products long term, right? And that's all it matters in the end. Like how you communicate will help you be more successful in your day-to-day job. So that's what I would like to end with. Is one is always be curious. Ask yourselves why other countries, why other cultures, why people doing stuff they do, and be embedded. So try to really understand, don't be judgmental, but try to really understand why the things are that they are, because actually you will benefit from it in your business. And with that, I'd like to thank you.
Would like to open the floor for question and answer. So, anyone who has a question? Please raise your hand. Question.
Yeah, I just wonder how. I used to have a lot of Dutch friends before, and I understand how honest they can get.
Okay.
To a point that is brutally honest. Almost make me cry sometimes.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just wonder how do you give a very clear, understandable feedback without while being soft at the same time? To Cambodian. Mainly your courage.
Well, you should ask my team if I actually succeed in doing that. I think you package it. So you start with starting with the things that you appreciate. You start with the things that come well. You don't give feedback in public. So I would take somebody apart, separate, and would have a conversation with them, saying that what I appreciate, and then saying either what I think could go better, and also ask their feedback, right? So this is you package it in, saying this is what I feel, this is what I see. Do you agree with my observation? And then like how can we improve this going forward? So you need to build it. You need to build it into like a bigger story. And what I said, like I will try to not do it in public, but if I have feedback, I will try to take them separately.
What happens if the situation is urgent and you need to give feedback directly and immediately?
And in that case, sometimes people might get upset. If there's urgent feedback and things need to happen, then different leadership. So I use different leadership styles depending on the situation. So if you have time with decision making, I like to be a little bit more democratic. So I will give people, ask for feedback, ask for input, and make a collective decision. If the situation is very urgent, then people need to get in line and start executing. And in that case, when it's the situation urgent, my feedback will be much more direct, and there will be much more directive also in what I expect to happen next. So I'm not necessarily. I'm not sure if in case when there's urgency, if I do it the Cambodian way. I think when there's urgency, I default back to my Dutch way, and my feedback will become a lot more direct and directive.
Next.
Any more questions?
Related more to when you talk about marketing strategy.
Louder.
Related to your part about long-term, short-term thinking for marketing strategy. I've had experience before when I was given the task to come up with like a marketing plan, but I did find it difficult because you said in Cambodia, especially the thinking of the community short-term. So just wondering for Cellcard and so for you, how long do you actually plan out your marketing plan? Do you go over a year or 5 years or
So the markets are different plans. So from a business point of view, we typically plan we have a 10-year plan, which is very much out there. Then we have a 5-year plan, which has a little bit more detail. The most detail we get, and we also have a 3-year plan. To be honest, that's all from a business point of view, where we think about network capacity. So 10 years is okay. That's like blue sky thinking. What kind of technology will be there? So we're not talking about 4G anymore. We're talking about 5G. We're talking about what is the future of the SIM cards. So nowadays people still have SIM cards, but most likely SIM cards will be embedded in phones rather than. So the power dynamic will change and the business dynamic will change. But also the market landscape in Cambodia, of course, changed as well. Then we have a 5-year plan, which is much more business as usual, but it's thinking about rolling out our network, building our capacity, entering new industries. The same with 3 years, but when we can come at marketing, I don't go beyond 1 year really. And the 1 year plan is much more about themes. So I want to, I have one theme that might be more about business. Might the theme about, might have a brand theme where I want to spend a couple of months around talking about brands. I might have a theme around youth, so I want to target youth. So I have different themes, and I cut up the market, or cut up the year in those themes. And then really when I start do my detailed planning, I don't go beyond 3 months. So 3 months is my detailed plan, and I have a full calendar with all the activities we're going to do throughout those 3 months, and being very focused on making sure how they integrate. So making sure that we don't go all over the place. That's why the themes are so important that we use. And then within these 3 months, things might change every couple of weeks or even every month. And that's why we have like weekly meetings to make sure that the marketing calendar is still correct. If there's any competitive activities that we need to address, or if we can go on business as usual. So we have different steps.
So because of choosing theme, you didn't get up in your market research, and how do you like statistically or with a more objective way of choosing the correct theme?
Yeah, so that's based on market research indeed. So where our strengths are, where our weaknesses are. So things that we either need to address because we are not as strong in there, or there might be things that we are particularly strong and we want to enhance it. Theme might also be based on network. So network is an important element. So if we build our network in certain areas, then we will strengthen our communication on that one. So LTE we are in the process of rolling out LTE as well. So LTE will then become a theme that we need to talk about. And the same with certain devices and distribution. So some of these themes are they're driven by market dynamics. Some of these themes might be driven by internal like network or distribution and related ones. Okay, any other questions? Yeah?
Very good morning to Mr. Niek and hello everyone. I have a question related to your presentation. The first question is related to like you try to summarize or you try to tell about the process of real life or like to observe the culture before we do the market or we have the business in one country like, which has different culture. I realize that it's really hard and it's takes a really long time to do it. But if it's such like we have a very long process to do it in case like if we have a fail of the our business, so what is the strategy? What is how can you pick it up in order to success? Even though you have a long, you can say that long observation before you do the business. You get it?
You mean how long do we need to spend on doing all upfront research before we can execute the idea? Is that before we can start doing business?
No, I mean that after that, like during or when we start our business and then we face with some challenge or we fail.
Yeah.
So what is the strategy or how can you pick it up? And another one like related to the whole step 6 dimension, I really am like doubtful which like statistic or data because I saw that you show many data related to the Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, and Netherlands. So how can you get the statistic from that? Did you do research? So what is the quality? What is the method that you do it?
A German mind, questioning the data.
Thank you.
I like that. Actually, the data that, like to answer the second question first, the data I got from it is an online tool. So there's an institute called the Geert Hofstede Institute. And they have done all the research in all these countries, and they have a questionnaire. And from this questionnaire, they derive a score for each of these dimensions. So actually, you can go online and do it yourself. It's a simple website. So Geert Hofstede. I will get send it as well. The second thing. So the first question is, if you've done all the research right, and then you have already a business, and then for some reason it's not working. And then you want to figure out why it doesn't work, right? That's the question. Well, it's like this is normal business practice. There are a lot of things and a lot of initiatives that I've done in my life that have not been so successful. And a way to do a proper, so you do pre-evaluation and post-evaluation when you start a business in that. So pre-evaluation is basically you determine what will make your business a success. Because first you need to understand what is success and what is failure. So you set KPIs before you launch an initiative. So once you set your KPIs, you either meet, so key performance indicators are critical success factors and the key performance indicators. So key performance indicator is what will determine success or failure. So it could be a number of customers that you want to win, could be revenue, could be for marketing, it's often brand awareness or campaign awareness or campaign interest, consideration. These are all KPIs, so key performance indicators that we use. If you don't meet those, then you need indeed do analysis. From a marketing point of view, often what we do is focus groups. So focus groups is basically getting people in and talking to them and understand what they like or dislike about your product. So did they understand the message, or did they like the message? So they might have understood it but thought that was not that interesting for them. They might not like the product. So talking to people is the easiest way. So as a telecom operator, we are in a lucky situation is that we have all the telephone numbers of our customers. So we get constant calls from our customers and they tell us what they like and what they don't like. So they might tell us that we don't have good network coverage in the area. So if we receive a lot of calls from a lot of customers in a particular area, then we might go there and build our network capacity. Another thing that people might complain about is that pricing might not be clear or some other things. So either they call us, that's one way we get information. We do focus groups, so get people in to talk about it. We do quantitative research, so we do a lot of, as a business and as a telco, we are in a lucky situation that we can spend more money on these things than maybe smaller businesses. So we maybe do quantitative research. But even nowadays, with online growing, so there are online survey tools, so SurveyMonkey or anything else, or Facebook, if you have a Facebook page as a business. It's all like ways to get feedback from customers and ask what they think, what they like, what they don't like. So the only thing that you can do is like continuously analyze what the feedback is and what customers tell you. And the only way to do that effectively is knowing upfront what you try to achieve. Without you knowing what your objectives are and what success means to you, it's very hard to analyze afterwards what failure is and why things might fail. Does it answer your question? Okay.
Any more questions? Okay.
Sorry, I'm just gonna. Okay, so right. How do we measure? So the question is, how do we come up with campaigns, and how do we measure success for TV campaigns? So one is in terms of
information you get, different forms include your decision on the commercial TV story. Then before you decide on the commercial TV like this to show on the TV, you write a story, right?
yeah.
So before you write this story, what kind of information makes you decide on this kind of story?
Right. So this is so how do we come up with TV advertising? How do we decide what kind of creative? So in TV you use the word creative to use, and it starts with in marketing you have this process called STP. So it's segment, targeting, positioning. So first of all, what you need to do is you segment the market. So that can be very simple as being old and young, male, female, or it can be a little bit more, a path would be people interested in technology and people not interested in technology. And you can divide or segment the market in many different ways. Then before we do TV advertisement, we decide, or any advertisement or any campaign, we decide which of these segments do we want to target. So that's the second, the STP, that's the T, on targeting. So I decided I might want to target youth because I've identified from surveys or research that we're not necessarily very strong in the youth segment. So we want to be strong in the youth segment. So then we say, okay, let's address the youth segment. Then we need to understand what drives youth. Like what do they find funny, what do they not find funny, or how can we best address them, what is the product that we want to sell, what do we think, so the positioning in this case, we position ourselves as having the best voice network, right? So that was the funny take. So we went to an agency, and we don't write these things ourselves, we have a creative agency who does that for us. So we go to the agency and say, we want to reach youth, and we want to position ourselves as the best quality voice network in the country. That's how we want to position ourselves. Can you come up with something that would appeal to the youth segment, so the appeal to the youth market, and has that story or has that message in it? So then they come up with creatives that address that. If you want to do it, if you have more budget, so then they come up with a couple of storyboards. So they decide a couple of storyboards, and then we say, well, we like this storyboard, this is funny, and this will appeal to youth, or this doesn't appeal to youth. So we might make changes based on that. If you have more budget and more time, you might even run it and do some testing with real consumers. So you might do like a dry run and tell the story to consumers and see if they like it, or if they are offended by it or not. If you don't have the budget, then of course everybody, we have enough young consumers or young consumers as well in our company as well. So there are a lot of Cambodians, so they can also assess whether or not something would appeal to the Cambodian taste. So when I'm sitting in a meeting with my agency to come up with creatives for the Cambodian market, I'm not going to sit there alone because I don't know necessarily what the taste is of the locals. So I always have local team members there with me to judge if something would be appropriate for the Cambodian market or not. So that's the way we do it. Like the success, afterwards we measure also the success. So we do surveys. One is we measure the awareness of a campaign. So just basically, have you seen the ad? Yes, no. Then we ask them about if they found the ad appealing. Yes, no. If they found if they did anything, if they want to see it again. Yes, no. So if they want to see it again, that means that they found the information interesting. So we also ask them, did you find the information relevant? And then last thing, did they do any action? So action is always important for marketeers as well. In the end, there needs to be some kind of call to action, or there needs to be some kind of action. Because if they just saw the ad and thought like, oh, that's fun, and they don't do anything, then I haven't achieved my objective. So at the end, I want them to go to the shop and do something. So we ask them also, as a result, did you do something? Did you go to the shop? Did you buy a SIM? Did you subscribe to the product or anything else that shows us the effectiveness of the ad? So that's basically how we go about it. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please stay.